Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm your humble host, Mr. Dave, hiding here in the darkness, sort of. And I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many, 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 many blessings from the universe. And so I hope that if you're watching this video that you're doing as well as possible in this crazy world of ours. And having just a little bit ago finished up doing Native American Myths and Legends with Robert V on the Milky Way channel. Um, I'm always kind of left over with some things from our 2 hours of conversation and reading and sharing. Well, for this particular time, um, my spirit guides have been, hey, Robert, yep, we're going to be talking about animals, animules, four-leggeds, and feathered creatures too. But having been sort of on that, my spirit guides have been directing me towards just having this discussion, animal totems, and not quite sure why now seems to be important, but now seems to be important that, and maybe it's because people are having trouble trusting each other. And I did a show last week or so about trust, that trust demands honesty and truth. Hey, Susie and Miss Pearl, how are you? It's good to see you all. And how important it is, that if we're going to put our faith in something, I put my faith in Duggar, my dog. He runs off once in a while in the evening times, and I call, and he doesn't come right back. But then 5 minutes later, I go, I wonder where that my dog is, and go to the door, and he'll be there wagging his tail. So he might run off and go chasing cats or critters or something, in daytime and nighttime. But and faithfully he comes back. So you can, unless he gets run over, which is always a worry that he goes up on the road or something. But you know, having had many pets, and I hate to use the word pet, okay, having had many different four-legged companions over the years. Um, Fond memories of my little dog Sasha, who is a wonder dog in my opinion. A little old a little old poodle dog, just and she wasn't no more prim and proper than the day is long. But would run literally. There was a wolf that was here for a while on the property, who was its owner was the medicine man who was teaching me. So my little dog Sasha was running with this wolf, literally. And I wish I could find some of the video because it was just amazing at what this little critter would do, and what that wolf, how that wolf treated my little dog Sasha. It was great. But if you have hey Steve, how are you? Pearl, Susie. Um, Now listen, if you have an animal or a critter that you would like to know about, put it in the chat room. Now, I've got my own that I want to start off with, okay, and just to sort of get the ball rolling. Um, as far as critters, now come here to me, you. Here's the Hey, Travis, here's the feather that I have, and I found this before, and it got lost, and then I have found it again, and I was like, it's a woodpecker feather. And recently, I have, well, doggone it, come here. I have complained in the past that I haven't seen any blue jays or any kind of bluebirds. And lo and behold, I have found these blue jay feathers. And I noticed that, like, this one has black on the top and white on the bottom. And this is, colors on the bottom and a white tip. And I was just contemplating the opposites, but similarities. Anyway, let me put them up. Come on now, be nice. What the heck? So I have forgotten. Hey, Michelle and David Castle, how you doing? It's good to see you. So what happened? I wanted to read about the for myself what the woodpecker was, and here I have this woodpecker feather, and I've forgotten about it several times, and it's not in the card book, and I've lost my place. Oh no, here it is. I had the book open to it. So this requires two pairs of glasses. All right. Regen, how are you? It's good to see you. All right. So if you have a question about a critter, would like to know what the totem is, I'm going to discuss what a totem is here in just a little bit. But right now, I want to read about woodpecker. Okay. So the keynote of the power of rhythm and discrimination. The cycle of power is summer. The woodpecker is one of those birds whose history is filled with myth and lore, much of it in connection with its most notable characteristics, the drumming. It is a relative of the flicker, and they share many of the same qualities and characteristics. In the European folk tradition, the woodpecker was often considered a weather prophet, its drumming indicating forthcoming changes. It was even believed by some to be a thunderbird. In Babylonia was considered the axe of Ishtar and was associated with fertility. In the Greek tradition, it occupied the throne of Zeus, considered sacred to this god of thunder. It was also considered the oracle of Mars, again because drumming was often used to accompany battles. The Romans also had a legend of the woodpecker. The powerful enchantress Circe fell in love with the woodland god Picus. When he rejected her love, she turned him into a woodpecker. In the Native American tradition, it is a bird connected to the heartbeat of the earth itself. This drumming has many mystical connections, from new life rhythms to applications of shape shifting. Many shamans learn to ride drum beats into other dimensions. That's what it says. Many shamans learn to ride drum beats into other dimensions. That's an interesting way to put that. There are, of course, different kinds of woodpeckers, each with their own unique qualities. Most are black and white, and some have red upon their head. The black and white reflects the need to see issues and aspects of life clearly. It reflects that things are fairly clear if we look closely enough. The downy woodpecker is the smallest. It is also the most common and most friendly member of the woodpecker family. The pileated, found most often in forest, is the expert woodchopper. Often as big as a crow, it is the largest of the woodpeckers. It has the conspicuous red crest. The red-headed woodpecker is also very common. While most woodpeckers, particularly males, have some red on the head, the red-headed woodpecker has a red mantle of feathers that covers its head and neck. The red found in the head area of many woodpeckers reflects a stimulation of mental activities and the head chakra centers. It reflects a stimulation and awakening of new mental faculties. This is even thus further symbolized by the pecking that is the trademark of this bird. Woodpeckers peck holes in trees and wood to get at grubs and other insects. This digging in, especially with the head, reflects increasing analysis. Their bills are strong and sharply pointed, and their skulls are heavier, facilitating the hammering. Their sharp bill and its long barbed tongue can be likened to the art of discrimination. Okay, let's see how they mix this in. Uh, if a woodpecker has drummed out a song for you, then you should ask yourself some specific questions. Are you looking at aspects of your life rationally? Are others around you not discriminating in their activities? Are you? Are you or others in your life just jumping into situations with little or no analysis? Sometimes the woodpecker will show up just to stimulate new rhythms. Rhythm is a powerful means of affecting the physical energies. Sometimes it is easy to get so wrapped up in your daily mental and spiritual activities that we neglect the physical. This can be when the woodpecker shows up. It may also reflect a need to drum some new changes and rhythms in your life. The woodpecker has strong hook claws for firm holds upon a tree. Its tail feathers help to prop it upright. It also has a peculiar up and down flight. It will fly, coast down, and it's true. It goes like this. It goes bloom, 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 bloom. They don't just fly in it. They fly straight, but they flap their wings and coast and flap their wings and coast. It flies in a manner and a rhythm unique into itself because not each all the woodpeckers show this, but because of their size and shape, and they don't repeat the same. In other words, smaller birds will their coasting will be shorter. But anyway, it flies in a manner and a rhythm unique unto itself. All of this serves to emphasize the fact that it will become increasingly important for you to follow your own unique rhythms and flight. Do what works for you in the manner best for you. When woodpecker comes into your life, it indicates that the foundation is there. It is now safe to follow your own rhythms. Now, for me, finding the woodpecker feather a while back and then losing it and then finding it again now is interesting because after my heart attack and everything, I have to find a new rhythm. to the rest of my life, however long that may be. And so also, I realized that I hadn't drummed in a while. And so now, before I read this about woodpecker, I'm sharing this with you first. I was like, when was the last time I drummed? Well, it was before I had the heart attack. And it was before then because it's been too hot outside and other things. And so before I read this, I was like, man, I got to get out my drum. My birthday's coming up and I need a lot of fire. And in a day or so, it'll be the first day of fall. And so it's time to do a drum, right? And so here I am with the woodpecker feather trying to follow up on what does this mean. And it's telling me the same thing. What my instincts were already telling me, what I need to drum. And yesterday, hi everybody, how are you? Listening as I clean the kitchen. God, I wish I could get somebody to come help me clean my kitchen. But anyway, um, I had a test done yesterday. I had a sonogram, all right, and I'm not pregnant. Okay, they looked all around with that little microphone thing, and with the sonogram, and I'm not pregnant, which gave the lady who was giving me the thing a good chuckle. Um, but they checked my aorta. All right, my what? Yeah, my aorta, and I could actually watch on the screen. I had to twist my neck up to see, but the blood pumping through my aorta, which is a large piece of tubing that pumps blood through our systems, right? And so that in itself was an experience to be able to like see inside myself at the time. And I was they can't share anything with you, right? But I'm just watching and they're measuring the inside diameter of my aorta. So I last Friday was my last day of my 30 days with my heart monitor that I had to carry around with me, right? And so I've been wanting to kayak and get on the river but I couldn't do it because I had this thing I had to carry around with me. But when Friday came and it was my last day, I was like, I need to plan a trip, me and Duggar, to get on the river somewhere, which we did yesterday. So trying to, keep my mileage down because of gas prices. I wanted to go to the Little River, a different river that I haven't been on, different section of the river near Reed Bingham. It's the north end of Reed Bingham State Park near Adel, Georgia, just for reference. And so I went there, but so after having had the test, I'm already got the kayak on the truck. We leave the hospital and go straight there. And 30 minutes later, Duggar and I are on the river. And I took video and I'm going to post it later on, so you'll get to see too. But anyway, so I paddled a whole lot further and a lot farther than I should have, but I kept wanting to see what was around the next bend. And it's been so long since I'd been in the kayak. Duggar was doing well and everything. And so I kept paddling upriver, thinking that every time I've ever paddled up a river, that the current brings me back. Well, there's very little current, and I had to paddle back. Okay. So um, so I get done, we're load the kayak, I get home, and I'm listening to my messages on the house phone, and my doctor has called me. Not one of his nurses, they had called earlier, but my doctor calls me and said, please call me as soon as you get this message. And that was like in the morning. And I was like, holy crap, my doctor called me. What the F is up here? So I, hang up the phone, and because I'm listening to my messages, I hang up the phone and I call him right back, and he goes, "Oh, Mr. No, I just wanted to tell you that we've got your test results back." And my brain goes into, "Oh, holy crap, what's wrong?" So he says, "We got your test results from when we scanned your chest last week, and they're all good. There's a couple of spots in your lungs," and he said, "but nothing to worry about. It's probably because of your 50 years of smoking, and but otherwise your lungs look pretty good." Well, that's good. And your test today, your sonogram, he said, "Now we watch for the aorta because we don't want it to swell, and the swelling will burst, and then we got to go in, and it's a really nasty mess." And he said, "But they measured your aorta, and it's only zero point 0.1 or zero point 0.2 enlarged. So you have nothing to worry about. And I wanted to call and tell you that um, you can go kayaking again." And I busted out laughing. I said, "Doc, I just got back from 4 hours on the river." And he goes, "Well, so how do you feel?" I said, "A little out of breath, and I'm out of shape. But thank you so much." So what scared the crap out of me just minutes earlier, and thank God I hadn't been I'd only answered the phone just a bit, but so to be told Saturday's my birthday. You've been hearing me yap about being 70. Well, now I'm like 4 days away or whatever it is now, right? I can't think of a better birthday present than to get a notification that even after my heart attack, my pipes are clean. I was watching the video and of her do my aorta, and I said, if there was a lot of plaque or stuff on my veins or whatever, it would show up in there, right? And she goes, "Yeah, of course it would." And I go, "Well, having done a lot of plumbing for people over the years, and having had broken pipes, and you look in the end of the pipe, and it's mostly corroded and rust and crap that's in the inside of the pipe." And I said, "From a plumber's standpoint, I don't see any rust. Do you?" And she was like, "Well, I can't really make any kind of judgment calls or anything like that." And I said, "Well, if you were a plumber, would you say that those pipes are pretty clean on the inside?" And she laughed and she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay." So, but basically, the report that did come back was my pipes are clean. So the blood flow and everything, and my high blood pressure, which has come way down, my friends. So the fact that I did 4 hours on the river, because I was going to do it anyway, damn it, but to come back to good news like, "Hey, man, we just checked your pipes and they're pretty damn clean. You're doing pretty good for 70, and have smoked for 50 years, you know, and even with my heart problems." So, thank you, Jesus. Thank you to the spirits. Thank you, um, and woodpecker, and my finding the feather again yesterday, today. It's time for drumming. It's time for a new rhythm, and in a way, it's given me a new lease on life because I was sure that I had something wrong with me. I mean, but I do have something wrong with me. 20% of my heart is not working correctly. And I do have issues, even at 70. But as far as my blood work and cholesterol and everything, I've done a pretty good job with staying healthy. That's a plus. So thank you. But I must honor myself and say thank you, for having cut down on my cigarettes, for my quit being an alcoholic. And, I was snorting coke and methamphetamines and stuff before it was ever popular with folks nowadays. Not bragging, I'm kind of sort of complaining. But the fact that I have survived all of these things that it seemed like I was trying to kill myself, I made it. A couple of days, I will have made it to 70. Oh my God. I'm just absolutely amazed. And thank you to the universe and to creator and to my animal totem, which hawk is my primary, but so is owl, and so is um oh that little critter that otter as well. So I I'm thankful to the universe, but at the same time there are a lot of changes I made myself. I had to make decisions 20 years ago to quit drinking and to live better and to but I'm still, after 50 years plus of smoking, which I would like to share a bowl with you all and saying thank you to the universe. But changing my life to take the shaman's path, to look at nature more closely, to live more closely with nature, and to listen when nature talked to you or showed you something or stood in your way and said, hey, don't do something stupid, you know. But also yesterday while on the river, there was off in the distance somewhere, up off in the woods in this one area where there was a woodpecker. So the woodpecker, listening to the woodpecker yesterday while on the river, and then finding the feather when I got home, has led me to pulling out the book and reading about woodpecker. So there is a connection, there is a correlation. And the fact that I heard it yesterday, which is not uncommon, but that I came home and found the feather. And because it was something the feather was supposed to tell me a couple of months ago, um, I, it all comes together. If you believe, you know, so what's the message? I need to, get a different rhythm in my life. I had one hell of a scare with having the heart attack, but with all the test results up to this point, it's like a new lease on life. Yeah, you got a bad heart, but it ain't so bad that you can't keep going. And it's not a death sentence in and of itself, but it's a damn warning. Pay attention. I am. And oh my goodness, as I was recording the video yesterday, Duggar's sitting in front of me, and we're on the river. There's not a sound to be heard. I mean, no cars, no honking horns, no machinery, no airplanes overhead, no nothing. And we got there early enough that it was still really cool, for the first 2 hours. And I mean, the temperature was nice. There weren't any bugs. The water was nice. I mean, it was just like, oh, and yesterday also was my pops, my uncle Arnie, who adopted me and my sister Lynn. It was his anniversary. He's been dead since '99. But September 19th is his birthday, was his birthday. So I was on the river. I forced myself to go yesterday, even though I was a little leery about whether or not I was strong enough to get her done. I did it in honor of my pops because it was his birthday. And there was many times that we had gone off on a boat, or there was one time we were camping and we did this 7 or 8 mile or 12-mile journey, and everybody else was doing it in a canoe, and we were in a 12-foot aluminum john boat. and we paddled it in like record time. Had a great paddle, and it wasn't on his birthday, but I remembered that journey that he and I took, and it was part of my Boy Scout training or something in canoeing, and I was like, but this, we don't have a canoe, so what? And I was like, I liked his so what attitude. So it ain't a canoe. We can still go. And so over the years, there have been times when, but I don't have a canoe. Well, but what do you got? Well, go sit on a log and paddle. I mean, if you want to do this journey enough, oh, but everybody else does it in a canoe. Well, so we got an aluminum John boat. Who cares? It floats. We got paddles. Let's go. And off we went. And Juniper Springs in the Ocala National Forest is where we were. So, but anyway, there's a tributary from the springs out to this river, and that was what we did. I'm assuming you can still do it, but anyway, that's a long time ago. That was back in the '60s. So, but after all these years, I still remember it. I still remember parts of the journey, and the fact that we made it in like almost two and less than 3 hours, and it was supposed to be a 3.5 hour trip, and we were like, and we didn't really work at it, we just paddled. And it was wonderful. But anyway, so in reminiscent of that trip all those years ago and his birthday yesterday, me and Duggar went on the river, and I'm going to post the video later. It'll be in at least 2 or 3 sections. But it was absolutely gorgeous. And I kept thinking about you all. Honestly, I was like, I so wish that I could share this moment, the peacefulness, the way the river felt. There were birds coming overhead, and there was this. And I mean, it was just the moment. It was just so quiet. And, when I go down on the Oclockney, it's quiet, but you can still hear trucks on the highway because it's much busier. This is a bridge out in the middle of the country, out in the middle of nowhere, basically. And so, there are a few farms around that area and so forth, but you couldn't even hear farm machinery. No dogs barking, no nothing. I was like, oh my gosh. And I have lived here all this time and didn't know that I could come here. Now it cost me $5 to park, but because it is part of the state park. But I was like, $5, okay, my truck is safe. Nobody, uh, although there's not any rangers, that is patrolled. Rather than just stopping on the side of the road somewhere and having your truck. But anyway, so what an experience! And on the way back, there were 3 guys uh, in a fiberglass boat thing. And as I got near, I was like, "Hey, how y'all doing? How's the fishing?" Then I noticed they didn't have any fishing poles. And as they were over, what y'all hunting? And they said gator. And I was like, really? I said, well, I haven't seen any gator and I haven't seen any signs. And we just came from a good ways up the river. No gator signs, no gators. But have a nice day. And I thought about it. I didn't see nothing in there. They didn't have any kind of nets or anything. What were they looking for gators for? But I just found that odd. But they were gator hunting. I know one thing where we had just left, it was only about 6 inches deep. I mean, the whole bottom of the river for this really nice long stretch was really shallow. So these guys with their little, they weren't going very fast, and it was very low noise. But they's going to have to walk or pole because the motor wasn't going to get them through that section. I mean, it was, I don't know, a good quarter mile where it was really shallow. and logs across and stuff, but gorgeous and perfect for the kayak or canoe. But anyway, so that was yesterday, and that's sort of a little update for my health and all. But in all of that, and listening to the woodpecker, oh, I saw a couple of of wild turkeys that had been down on the only sandbar for literally miles. I checked Google Earth, and we were at least 2 miles north of the bridge, at least. And there was hadn't seen a sandbar, which if you're on the Oclockney, you go around a bend and there's a sandbar. You go around another one, there's a sandbar. Not everywhere, but a lot more prevalent. Couldn't find a sandbar for 2 miles on the Little River. Totally different scenario, the way the river is, and but anyway, it was great. Wish y'all could have been there, and I'll post this video. It's 12:20. Oh my goodness, where's my bowl? Here, let's share one, y'all. I know that there are folks who are in tribulation right now with ailments and cancers and stuff. My heart attack sure changed my viewpoint of how much time I got left on this planet and what should I do with that time. And it's make the most of it. That's what. Cheers. We have lost friends this year from cancers and things and brain aneurysms, and I'm so grateful that I can be here and share a bowl with y'all and see that Saturday will be my 70th birthday on this planet. Oh my God. There's so many things that I've done that I shouldn't be here, So this here is another phase of life. I haven't figured it out yet, but we'll have a discussion about it. But anyway, so all y'all out there, if anybody want to know about any particular animal uh, or insect or bird, there's a section in here on insects. Um, I know that when I had my first honest to goodness eye to eye contact with a hawk, and I knew that hawk was my totem. It was one of the most chilling because it was surreal. It was thrilling because he looked right into my soul and spoke to me. Um, Overwhelming because here is this beautiful hawk in the middle of a downpour, thunder and lightning crashing, and he's standing on this limb just offer me like, pay attention. Oh my God. And I had my nickname was Hawkeye from the days of the carnival. And so now here's a hawk looking at me and telling me, and I'm like, what? So all of these things, and even after all these years of from, it's been at least 20 some years since I've had that experience. It is still right there. It the feeling and I can see the hawk and I can see him looking at me and I can hear his voice and oh my God. And it was on Trey Mountain in North Georgia. And I've talked about my experience that time before. I won't relate it here just to tell you that it was a super duper show enough turning point in my life, especially as far as being a shaman, especially whether or not I believed in the totems. Because I was in that wishy washy stage back there, was like, well, I see this animal a lot, and I see this, and I had, I think someone had given me two tail feathers from a red hawk. And I was like, so I was already kind of sort of on the path, but not consciously. Maybe I was unconsciously following things, and consciously I was getting feathers and messages. The birds were there and incidents, and so. But I had not accepted my journey as a shaman in this, right? But I was trying to understand it, and I would have never ever considered using the word shaman as a as opposed to me being a shaman. I was like, nah, I've got a long way to go. Nah, I would never, you know. And I wasn't necessarily trying to become a shaman back then, but I was absolutely trying to follow the good red road. I was finding my native side. I'd been to many powwows at that time, but I had not participated in a powwow at that time. And it was several years later that I started doing storytelling and puppets at powwows and became part of it. And, I got my nickname, he who runs at both ends, running man. My incident with, bad food and my running back and forth in the middle of the night to the porta john. So I became part of the clan, running man, hey, he who runs at both ends, and it was a horrible feeling to be running at both ends, but it was a great feeling to be accepted into the community and to have a nickname, you know. But so, but animal totems and things, and so here's the thing: with animal totems, it doesn't have to be one animal. And I'm going to go to the beginning here and read a little bit and discuss some of this about what a totem is. There's a section in here called augury and the meaning of landscapes. Let me read this a little bit to you, okay, and share this. Now, the book that I'm reading from is one that I think I've showed before. I don't know if you can read it. It's called Animals Speak and is by Ted Andrews, who has passed away um, a few years back, but has written several books. But it's called Animals Speak, and I think he was involved in writing the book about um, the stone circle thing, the dancing with the wheel. So I wished I didn't have to put on two pairs of glasses, but I just can't read that. One of the ways in which you can come to understand nature and what she says to you through animals is by examining the symbolism of the habitats. Where do these critters live? The landscape, the habitats, the countryside in which animals are observed and experienced can add much to your understanding of the role they will play in your life as totems. But also, when you see them, I'm going to keep reading. And if they don't say it, I'll come back to this. Keep in mind that the inner spiritual forces often unfolds as forms within nature. So to see the animal in its habitat, it isn't about seeing the animal itself, but Where does it live? What's it doing? It's the whole thing. Keep in mind that the inner spiritual forces often unfold as forms within nature. It could be flowers or trees, or this means then that a mountain crest has a much greater significance than just being the top of a big hill. Different worlds, different landscapes reflect different states of being. We can discover much about our own state of being by orientating ourselves to the landscapes within our life. Many societies recognize the importance of landscape and spatial shapes and forms. Feng Shui. They saw them or do see them as dynamic symbols. We can discover much about our own life situation by orientating ourselves to our landscape and life within it. To do this appropriately, we must consider, and there's a list, the predominant elements and characters of the whole, natural and artificial, i.e., the trees, the flowers, the ground, and so forth. So if you've got fake fruit in your house just because it looks pretty versus having something that's real and natural, the spatial symbolism. If there are times when I've noticed that here on the property, see you later, Steve. It's always good to see you. Is apples good for rough? Rujen, be careful about apples. Um, they're good, but not so much. And the idea of an apple a day, I think, is okay. But back when they were freeing the prisoners of war during World War II, they were given the prisoners. I'm sorry, the well, the in Dachau and in the prison camps and so forth, the GIs were given them apples, and the apples did something to their stomachs because they hadn't eaten, and it actually killed them. So they couldn't, even though they had fresh fruit, they couldn't give them to the starving people. So I don't, depending on what you're doing with apples, look into that. The form or pattern of the terrain, whether it's soft, hard, broken, sloped, is it mountains, is it valleys, is it swampy? The relationship of a specific area to the whole region. So you're in a swampy area, but it's mostly mountainous. You're just in a low spot. The general cyclic pattern, seasonal, yearly. What time of year are you there? Are you there on the mountain valley in springtime, or is it the fall, or is it the dead of winter? The predominant colors. Now, if you're out in nature, you should be seeing a lot of greens, but that don't mean that's all you're seeing. And the predominant wildlife that might be in a particular setting. So what I've noticed is that there are microcosms of places. So I had a bucket outside that I was throwing rocks in and pieces of cement, right? So I picked up a bucket, and underneath it there were worms and things and stuff. So a 5 gallon bucket with rocks in it that I had moved has got this microcosm of nature. There are squiggles in the ground where there's a worm. There's a hole in the ground where there's been a mole or something that's digging out here in the yard. There are different types of bugs that have set up their own little nature place under this 5 gallon bucket. So it doesn't have to be acres upon acres of a nature setting. It can literally be the world that has set up under a board, under around a log, under a bucket. But these are all parts of nature, regardless of how big they are, how big the landscape is. And so the fact that things live in all different types of landscapes. So the idea of what is a landscape, and does it apply to you? So I had not considered smaller landscapes. It was always, how does it look from on top of the mountain? What does the view look like? You know, or going down by the river, it has to be a certain setting. Well, what about this little setting here? What about, what's around this tree that's fallen and the critters that live there, if there are any? Um, are there beetles that have gotten into the bark? Are there termites that live there? Are there any ground critters like lizards or so forth? And this can all be in a small area, but it is nature unto itself. And when you start considering the different landscapes, not just the big picture, but sometimes going smaller, and there's just a hedgerow. All right, there's some bushes, but what's living in them bushes? There's a bird has made a small nest that's hidden up inside, or there's what's living underneath. The leaves have fallen on the ground. What's living just under the leaves? Are there worms? And what's the ground like? Do birds go and sit on these little bushes or this little area? So the landscape, doesn't have to be a large area, but by watching these microcosms of the planet, by looking at these small areas, you can gain a lot of larger knowledge. Like you see this bird that keeps going back and forth, or I got a tree out here that's really needs to get cut down. And maybe this winter, I got part of it last year. But that the woodpeckers go to it. There were little, oh, ladderback um, woodpeckers. And every time I'd go outside to get a picture of one, they'd move around the other side. I could never get a good picture of them or video. In some of the native stories, woodpeckers are called the hiding birds because if they see you and you spot them and make eye contact, they'll move around to the other side of wherever they're working. And a lot of times it's like that. It's hard to get a decent picture if you're anywhere up close of some of these woodpeckers. And now also if you live if there's a woodpecker in your neighborhood and there's a lot of people, they're used to it. But down here, out here in the country, where there's not a lot of, outside activity on my part, and if I go outside with the camera to take a picture, it goes around to the backside of the tree. But anyway, so but to learn about where you are in with nature, or are you getting some kind of flow? Can you take a small section of a flower bed or of a hedgerow, or there's a pipe that goes under your road because when it floods, water goes through there. There might be a little ravine or whatever, and it's really small, but there's this microcosm of nature which represents the whole. It's a part of the big picture, but there's this little spot, and there might be a frog, or there might be a lizard. There might, and depending on where you are and relative positioning, there might be a minnow or two that's in this little area. But in that, but it's nature in unto itself, and it's all connected. And so, what you find in these microcosms, and how the worm interacts, and how the bird come look who's looking for the worm to eat, and just the whole thing. Does this matter to us personally? Well, It depends on the type of person you are and what you're looking for. There are folks that think that, you know, I'm bat cray cray. I'm crazy because I, hug trees and stuff. But since I started on this landscape thing, in the East, India, and Tibet, particularly, the use of geometric shapes is called yantra and geomancy. Hey, Travis. I'm hungry too, yes. A study of the symbolism of geometric shapes will yield much fruit in regard to the shapes within your own environment, be it the shape of a room, a yard, or a park. Although geomancy is often considered divination in Western traditions, it has a much wider history and application to environments. In China, feng shui is art that uses ancient wisdom to assist in arranging furniture and buildings to achieve the greatest harmony with nature. This Chinese practice is based upon principles of design, ecology, mysticism, and architecture. For all the mystery that surrounds it, feng shui evolved from the simple observations that people are affected, for good or ill, by their surroundings. The Chinese, as with many societies, saw a dynamic link between landscapes and humans. They believed that nature reacts to every change and that reaction resounds within the life of the humans. It sets up vibrations. So if you're in some place that makes you uncomfortable, it may be the architecture, seriously. It might be di- um, disharmonic, unharmonic. Um, anyway, feng shui is a language of symbols associated with landscapes, rural, city, towns, and even the rooms of a home. To the feng shui person, the shape of the landscape could leave an important imprint upon an individual's life, an imprint affecting the character or the prosperity. It can read and interpret it in very significant ways that need to be considered if we are to become fluent in speaking and understanding the language of nature. So, changes that we can make within our environment. Um, I know I've got plants that have over here around the front door, and when you walk in, you have to duck under some vines that have been growing over the doorway for I forget how many years now. And a friend of mine was like, those things have been growing there ever since I've known you. How long have those vines been growing by the doorway? And I was like, 10 years, 15 years. I just become used to it. They're part of the house. And, but, well, what do you feed them? I just water them. That's all. I don't give them any kind of fertilizer or anything. And they're growing like mad for how many years? So the environment, they have adapted to the environment of the house over there, and they're thriving because the vines keep popping up over here and stuff. And I mean, I'm always kind to them, and they must be doing well, otherwise they would have died. Yeah, we can curse people with just a look too, but anyway. Um, so, symbology of the landscape. So, in nature, so, and I've tried to um, make my house sit with the environment and on the ground and in the ground, and, and I really want to finish my porch out there that has been neglected. Um, but it's been a strange spring, and heart attacks included, and pre-heart attack, has slowed me down. But now, after this new revision of life, and that my pipes are clean, I want to get back out on that project. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, because it's not feng shui at the moment. There's a section here, the city environment. And a lot of you live in the city. So, in modern society, most people find themselves living within the city environment. This will not prevent you from learning to read nature and to develop animal speak. Cities do, of course, have their own unique lessons. Cities often contain many lessons associated with the community and learning to live with variety, flexibility, and adaptability. Examine the variety of people, conditions, and such within your environment. When you live in a neighborhood, what's going on? Examine the shape of your city. What does its shape reflect? Does the main city buildings face east or west or whatever? Remember that directions are symbolic of qualities. Does your home in the city face the east, west, or whatever? What is the symbolic shape of your house or yard? To the feng shui person or one skilled at reading landscapes, rectangular or square shapes are often considered best. They reflect balance. What do the street patterns closest to you seem to reflect? A backyard higher than the front is often considered more auspicious. Are there plant life or trees flourishing near your home? This reflects healthy energy. So, um, remember that cities and homes have their own metabolism. Those living within them will take on many of the same characteristics of their home, their yard, their neighborhoods, and their city. They will embody and reflect the qualities of those landscapes. Cities also have their own indigenous wildlife. Those animals that survive and live in the city are very adaptable. Be careful about making biased judgments about city animals. Even the rat can have wonderful symbolic characteristics. In Chinese astrology, the rat possesses characteristics that range from humorous to meticulous and often change directions. As with any animal, city animals should be examined for all their characteristics. You hate living in the city? Yep. But, this, I've lived in a city before and in neighborhoods and grew up like that and all that. But, there were always places that even as a kid, I could find these landscapes. Hey, Travis, if I let you take something is one thing, but when you shove something in your pocket, it's another. Yep. Oh, the poison ivy growing up your garage door. Yeah, not so much that. There are places around my house because I live on the edge of the swamp. I mean, you walk out my door and it's right there. And so things keep creeping in from the swamp. There's ivy growing out here that started up this tree, and now it's down and out and across to over here. It has gone nuts. And I've got a lot of wild elderberry right out, literally right out my back door. And it's becoming a nuisance, you know. Um, and the idea that, but living with it and allowing nature to overtake it, like out here in the yard, I had some potted plants that had some wandering Jew. And now there's wandering Jew all over the place. I have to rake it up, and I wheelbarrows of it I have moved here since my heart attack. Since because being in and all that stuff, it kept me from keeping up the yard, and it got way out of whack. And I mean uh, large piles of wandering Jew that I have pulled up out of the yard, and there's still two or three more wheelbarrows full of this stuff that has just went from being in a potted plant to it has taken over. It's all over the place. But I gotta say, it's a great ground cover, and worms love to live under it, and certain other bugs too. But it's gotten so thick that it's like this thick. You can't walk through it. Um, and it vines everywhere, and you can literally watch this stuff grow. It's weird and amazing, and but but it's all over here and behind the house and down in the woods where it has just gone nuts. I mean, there's a large area where it has become very unruly, invasive. Okay, but in other parts of the woods, it hasn't taken up, but it loves it right back here behind the house. Let me tell you. Now it looks good, from a distance, but it's a pain in the neck, and I don't know about it being feng shui. I know my chickens would eat it when I pulled it up. And I don't have chickens anymore, but where I used to pull it up and feed it to my chickens, now I have to pull it up and burn it or dispose of it or move it to another area where it might go crazy. And it does not compost well. In fact, it sort of likes being composted. So it's like normal ways of killing it ain't working. Have to burn it. But anyway, so since none of you have brought up any particular animal that you might want to know about, just know that all of the critters on this planet, including us, we make a difference. And when we include the other animals on this planet, it makes a difference. If you're a dog person and you take care of dogs, you're more likely to be a caring person versus some snippy old bastard that, get off my lawn or whatever. Of course, a snippy old bastard might have a point if kids are tearing up his lawn, but, or letting your dog poop there on the corner every time if you're living in a city or a neighborhood. Well, the dog likes to poop there. Yeah, but pick it up, you know. I felt bad the other day. Me and Duggar had pizza last week, and he was in the front seat with me at Pizza Hut, and there's a big open field. And so I had to let him out, and I thought he had to pee. No, he had to poo. And I was like, oh, no, everybody's watching you take a poo here beside the Pizza Hut, and I don't have nothing to pick it up with. And I just sort of like, but it was a big field. It wasn't like people walked across it or whatever. But I felt bad because Duggar's taking a dump on somebody else's place. And I thought, wow, I had not considered that. Him lifting a leg and peeing is one thing, but taking a big old dump out here in front of God and everybody, I'm like, oh no, I don't know you, dog. Go away. This ain't my dog taking a poo here. I was embarrassed. Not that there were a lot of people, but we were out in the open, and I was like, even though it was in nature, I was like, wow, I'd never had that feeling before, you know. But I can understand, um, dude, you're taking a dump on somebody else's property, just and here he finds a place and off he goes, and I hate it when he goes right out here in the yard, and I go out there later on and in the evening and step in it. That's not nice, but thank goodness he doesn't do that very often. Um, but you have to keep an eye on nature and your own little place. And there are folks who do the little bonsai plants. There are folks who have a couple of little plants in their house or whatever, and that's the nature of things. And you like to water your plant and make sure you don't overwater it or let it die. I'm thinking it's about time for me to go around and water all the plants again about once a week. I don't, but I water them really good when I water them. But I've got plants in here that are 12, 15 years old that have been sitting over here almost in the same spot that long and have been growing over as you come in the door. There are mother-in-law's tongues and vines that are overhead, and they've been there, in my recollection, forever. At least the last 10 years. And they just become part of the house. And I along with it. And there was a lizard who was living on the vines and stuff. And so when you can have whatever that relationship is with nature, and whatever it is that you have, when I watch the little lizard crawl in the windows up here and steal food from the spider webs, I was like, what are they doing? And so any insects that got caught by the spiders, the lizards were going around and eating the flies or bugs out of the spider webs. I was like, what a deal, a smorgasbord. So every day I would sit here and watch. Now, I haven't seen the lizard. He probably went outside, and because there's not a lot of bugs in the house, but they get caught in over here and there. And it's amazing, by leaving the spider webs alone, how many bugs there aren't in the house. And so, but the little lizard, you'd watch him hanging from the vine. And so I don't know whether or not it's feng shui, but when you have critters, I've had frogs that bounce across the floor. They get up under the door and, and go hunt at night. And I've talked about having little toad turds that I was finding on the floor and pieces of insect in it. And I'm like, yeah, I looked at a toad turd because I didn't know what it was. And now I respect them. I'm careful. They'll be in the kitchen. You turn on the light, or if I've got a light on in the kitchen, they'll be sitting on the floor, hanging out around the cupboard over there. And they'll be like, if there's a something that comes out, they'll launch after it and chase it down. And it's like, when you live with nature the way I do, which a lot of people do not agree with, you have frogs in your house that run around. Yeah, you have to be careful at nighttime. You don't step on one. That what? Well, that's my feng shui, to live with nature. And my biggest argument is ants. And oh my God, they're trying to get in the house all. They started in August, and this is the middle of the month. But man, when the ants start moving into the house, weather's changing. That's all I got to say. So, my dear friends, um, since y'all don't have any questions about critters, I have given a good overview of some of the things about animal totems, and especially landscapes, how they affect us. And I'm going to look into this a little bit more later on and be a little bit more specific. But I wanted to just give kind of sort of an overview right now and see if there was any interest. So, my dear friend, I consider, I can consider, I continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many benefits and blessings from the universe. And when you look to nature, there are hidden answers that you might not even have considered. Like I didn't know that watching birds was going to help me out or something or calm you down or whatever. So I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you and your friends, your family, and all of your relations and relatives and folks you come in contact with, that you will continue to learn how to understand and accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe and the great lessons and things and how it can change your stress and make you feel better about yourself and about the universe. And in that law of three, which I continue to believe that is important to all of you and to me, I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And if you ever have any questions about animals in the future during whatever live streams I do, depending on how busy I am or what's going on, I will, because these are not cards, although I do the animal cards, um, but animal totems, when they bring you personal message, not just in the cards, but in life itself. So, um, ants can bring you messages. I mean, the persistence of ants. Oh my goodness. And how do they know when I got an ant crawling across the floor in my house? Where did you come from? How did you get into my house when it's a concrete floor? Where is your nest? And you're carrying a crumb. And where are you going with that thing? And what do you think you're going to do with it when you get, I mean, but to the point. So ants and bugs and things can bring messages if you're listening. So I love you all. It's been a long couple of days. I'm really tired from doing my paddling trip yesterday, but got to get my strength back up. And so for those of you out there who are suffering, you got to keep your strength up. Otherwise, it will get worse. And I haven't taken my evening medicines, so I gotta go. I got 10 bottles here. I gotta go through and take my evening meds. So I love you, Isby. We'll talk again. Okay, if you can get up here and everything is copacetic, we can absolutely go get on a river. We'll find a river if there's one in the backyard. So, but anyway, I love you all. Be at peace and stay out of the stress. And we'll chat again soon. So I always pray for your safety. Cheers. Be thankful we're not getting shot at. Okay. And we'll talk again soon. So see you later, alligators.